And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're looking at a game called Western Town. This is a game that's currently being crowdsourced, and this game is basically exactly what the title says. It's about building a Western town. In fact, a lot of mechanics of this game will remind you of Euro games in the past that have built castles and things like that, except here instead of building a castle, you're building a town in the American Wild West. So let's take a look at the mechanics, and then I'll tell a little bit what I think about the game at the end. As I say in all these previews, what you're looking at is not the finished product of the game. Some of it is close, more near to completion than others, and we can see the artwork for the game is coming into play. And in fact, I'm going to be showing this color board because it looks cooler, but the board has actually been supplanted with this board. There's different spaces to build buildings in the board, and these give some of the spaces benefits if you build upon those specific spaces. Now, what players are doing in this game is they are building their own town, trying to get points through different ways by luring more people to the town, by accomplishing getting gold, etc. But the way that what you have here is you have your own area, and these are buildings that I can build, and everyone else has their own section and own buildings that they can build, but all the buildings are basically the same. There's one common area, the Indian camp, that's for everybody, but you'll also notice that there's some resources up here. We have white, that stands for the lure, that the more that your town has, the more it has a chance to bring people in. Cowboys, who are useful in combat against the Indians, and then the pink are just people, and you can see also that there's larger cubes, and those cubes stand for 4, the smaller ones. Yellow is gold, and brown is wood. And you're going to need all that. At the beginning of the game, each player starts with 4 buildings. You get a gold mine, which automatically goes here, and then you get 3 other buildings that you can put wherever you want. And again, you might want to put them in specific places because of the bonuses they get. And then each player is going to get a start card, like for example here. And this card and the start cards are different, so the players will not have completely the same start, but it will tell you what building you start with, how much gold you start with, how much population you start with, and how much wood you start with. So if I take this one, I get an extra building, the drugstore, that I can place in my area, and then I also will get gold to put in my gold area. I'll get some wood to put into my wood on my woodwork, and I also get some citizens that I'll be able to put out here. Everyone also starts with a certain amount of peace pipe and a certain amount of cowboys that you'll have on the board. And so that's basically the setup of the game. There's a few other things, but basically when you build these buildings, the big thing here is you have a deck of cards. And each player has a deck of cards, and each card in that deck corresponds to a building on the board. So for example, I have a marshal building, so therefore I have a marshal card in my hand. I have a dwelling that I have in my town, so I have a dwelling card in my hand. A gold mine, woodwork, and vigor, that's a card that everybody gets at the beginning of the game. But most of the cards that you get, you're going to have based on the buildings that you have in your town. So the more buildings you add, the more possibilities for cards that you'll be able to play. As the game progresses, you have these other buildings that will come out on the board, but not every building will come out to be built. Some buildings, and this is a bit random, will be turned over, and you will be able to add more dwellings, which are just simple places to live in your town. Now, at the beginning of each round, players are going to look, and it's important to look at these numbers here on the board, underneath the spaces. The lowest visible number is your hand size. So you can see if you cover up all the 4s, then your hand size becomes 5. If you cover up all the 5s, your hand size becomes 6. But there's also benefits to covering up those 5s or 6s, so it's up to you. But players are going to have to discard down to their hand size, and then a round begins. After you decide which cards to keep, then the action phase begins. And the action phase works like this. One person goes first. So he has this little black meeple here. He plays an action card. Then he and the person to his left both play an action card at the same time and resolve them. Then the person to his left and the person to their left plays an action card. We keep going till everyone has played 2 actions in front of them. The last player only plays 1 action. But actions are usually played in pairs because you're always watching what your neighbor does, and it's important that you'll be playing the card simultaneously because you might not necessarily want to play the same action card that they do. Action cards do all sorts of things. For example, the woodwork card here lets you discard a wood to remove a destroyed building token, which, sometimes your buildings get destroyed. Or it lets you build a new building. And so you say, oh, I want to build the bank here, and I need to have at least 4 of these black buildings. That's what's on the bottom of this card on the board. And I also need to spend a wood and another wood or gold. And so you can build another building with the woodwork card. The marshal lets you take 2 gold, get rid of one of them, and put the other up here in a national bank, which is useful for point scoring. The vigor cards allow me to get rid of these burn tokens, or I can play a card that's already been played in front of me. Because when you play an action card, it stays face up in front of you. And the dwelling lets me bring in more people, and each building lets you do different things. The gold mine gives you more gold if you want, etc., etc. Now, after everyone has played 2 of these action cards, they're face up, and you need to leave them face up for several reasons. One, because like the vigor cards let you replay a purple card that's face up and so on. But also at the end of a round, you are going to get the benefits that are up here in the corner of the cards. See, for example, here, these white tokens are not lure at the beginning, they're Indian peace pipes. However, if I have this token here in the corner, I can move one of them over. And I also get another gold. So having these cards face up in front of you can get you resources. After everybody has played 2 action cards, then each player can play a 3rd action card in turn order. Or they can reveal a card. Each card has 2 things, an action and a reveal status. The action is usually more powerful than the reveal. And you can only use the reveal if one of your neighbors has that building in front of them. So you'll be looking at the person to your right and left and seeing the buildings they have in front of them. And you say, well, if you need those requirements, and it does a lesser action usually, why would you do it? Because when you do a reveal action, the player next to you who has that card in front of them must turn that card face down, which stops them from using it as a reveal action, and also stops them from getting any resources that may be in the top there. So each person will do an action and then a reveal, and we'll go around the table. At the end of the round, we are going to be looking at one of these Lincoln cards. You'll make a deck of these at the beginning, and he'll come up, and Lincoln is looking for something different each time. Here he's looking specifically at gold. Here he's looking for gold and settlers. Here he's looking at gold, settlers, lure. Just gold and lure. And so he's looking for different things as time goes by, and whoever has the most, look, gold in the bank and lure and settlers who have come to town in the different categories, is going to win this card. And so you want to win as many of these cards as possible. Also, during the course of the game, many of the actions will require you to roll the Indian die. And this die will make you either add a red or orange to this camp. And when it reaches a certain number, when there's either 3 reds or 2 orange Indians there, then the Indians are going to attack the town. And one of the players who has the red meeple, and this will be passed around just like the first player meeple, one of those players is going to decide who is attacked by them. And usually, in the case of a tie, whoever has more peace pipes is going to break that tie. But they're going to attack, and you have to use cowboys to fight them off. And they can either destroy a building, or they can take away cowboys. And so there's different things that they can do. And the Indians, the bigger and better you use your village, the more the Indians are going to attack time and time again. And so that's basically how the game is going to work. At the end of the game, you're going to look at each of the buildings, and many of the buildings, like for example, the bank here, is worth victory points, as you can see in the top corner there, worth 2 victory points. And of course, all the black houses that the player has, that you've gotten from cards or from other buildings, whoever has the most of those gets 3 points. And then the linking cards will establish what's important during the course of the game, and then you'll get final points based on the amount of settlers, the amount of lure that you have in your town, and the amount of gold that you have in the national bank. Whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. Whenever I get these new games, I'm looking for interesting things from them that I don't see in other games. And in this one, the mechanic where you must use cards that your opponent has used to use those reveal actions and take them out. It's very interesting because before you do that, you're looking at the game as a very solitaire style game. You're sitting there, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Wait, what's he doing? Oh my, oh man, oh he played that card. I can use this one now. So it has some very interesting effects. That and trying to manipulate the Indians not to attack you but to attack others, and then playing cards that turn over other people's cards. Suddenly the game doesn't feel so solitaire anymore. You're actually going after other people. Now, on complexity level, I would put this game as not super complex, but certainly towards the upper end of medium weight, maybe even upper weight, because there's a lot going on. I would rank this in complexity similar to Kalis. There's a lot going on. You're trying to track different resources. And it's interesting because you might want to be going for gold now. Lincoln might want gold this turn, and next turn he's not interested in gold. So you have to kind of balance everything out and decide what buildings, and there's so much going on and so many choices. If you think about it, there's not a lot of luck involved in the game. It's basically reacting to what everyone else does, the cards that you play. The only luck in the game is how the Lincoln cards come up, and while that does drive the game itself, you still are determining your town, and there's myriad amount of options and opportunities and ways to build your town. So this is one I think that's going to appeal to Eurogamers, especially those who want interaction. It's not direct interaction all the time, although turning someone else's cards over will not necessarily make them happy. But at the same time, if you go after another person too much, you're not really building your own town up either. And there's just a huge variety of choices. The idea of playing a building that adds a specific card to your hand, some very unique ideas in this game. So if you're interested in supporting this game, check out the links immediately following this or in the show notes, and maybe you'll see it published very soon. Western Town.